Sam, you're a 20-year-old communication student. What were your influences? What got you into music?
Well,
When did you first pick up a guitar?
I've it's 2017. My mate and I are on holiday in Palmerston North with my mum. She said, "You know what, Sam? I'll take you down to Palmerston North and you can bring a mate." And I was like, "Awesome!" I bring my mate Jack, and we were driving around Palmerston North, just minding our own business. And he was telling me he was listening to a lot of the Beatles lately, and I said, "I hate the Beatles."
You hate the Beatles?
Not anymore, that's for sure. So what he did was like, he would not have that. He would absolutely not have that. So what he did, he took me to JB Hi-Fi at the Palmerston North Mall, and he bought me a CD copy of the One album, which is all the number one hits for the Beatles, and then Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and we listened to them. And I was surprised at how many songs I'd recognise on the actual thing, because I grew up listening to like Coast and other kind of oldies stations like that. So I thought, you know what? I'll trust my mate Jack, and it was just from there, it was just a rabbit hole of different bands and genres and everything, and that's where I am today.
So did your parents ever buy music? Did they go to music concerts? Did they ever take you to some music festival?
I can't lie, John, I barely remember what I had for breakfast this morning. But, for the most part, not really. No, I mean, I think one vague memory I have was when my dad took me to a Thomas and the Tank Engine concert at North Shore Events Centre when I was about 4. But I don't think my family's huge musical people. My uncle, I think he was a professional musician. He was in a cover band for a while. But aside from that, no, really, it's just by my own accord mostly.
Any particular artist that that has stood out for you at that early age?
Oof, at that early age, how old are we talking? Like when I was a wee one?
Yeah, when you're a wee one, yeah.
I'd say probably the Bee Gees and ABBA, most likely. My dad loved the Bee Gees, my mum loved ABBA, and they kind of mixed together, and that's what we really listened to. And it really explains itself. The Bee Gees are great. They're kings of disco. And ABBA, they were around for 10 years and they sold how many million records?
Multi-millions.
Yes. And I mean, that really just speaks for itself, doesn't it?
And here they are back again
Absolutely.
in 2021 and 22.
Oh, what are your thoughts on the new songs?
Brilliant. I love it.
I agree.
Because they said, you know, we were popular back in the 70s and early 80s, and we're just recreating what we used to do in that studio all those years ago, and what they've produced today is just incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not trying to be anybody else. They're not trying to be a new artist out in 2022. They're just themselves. Exactly. And to think that those artists, those women, are now into their mid-70s, what they came up with is just... it blows me away.
And their voices, they've aged like a fine wine, haven't they? I think the only other person whose voice has aged better would be Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra. I remember seeing a clip on YouTube, him playing at the O2 Arena in, I think, 2016, singing Telephone Line. His voice is just so beautiful.
It's funny that you mentioned Jeff Lynne, because I watched something on YouTube the other day. It was the tribute to George Harrison. This was a year after George had died.
That's a fantastic concert.
And they did a concert with George's son, Danny.
Danny, yeah.
And he was amazing, along with, back in those days, that concert was Tom Petty, there was Paul McCartney.
That Prince guitar solo.
And Jimmy Preston. And it was just amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I remember watching the clip for While My Guitar Gently Weeps from that concert.
Eric Clapton.
Oh, that Prince guitar solo is probably one of my favourite all-time guitar solos of all time. It's just it's so good. And I just can't explain it other than that. You have to go watch it and just see it and just feel it. Like, you can feel, you know, he's sad for the death of his friend, but he's still a rock and roll machine. All of them were, actually, really, even for their time. So it's just, I can't even describe it. It's just such a great guitar solo.
Now, you mentioned just a few moments ago that you grew up with the Bee Gees.
Yes.
Now, you're talking to the number one Bee Gees fan here. Now, there was a time when I used to be on radio and used to play the Bee Gees that it was very uncool. They went through a period where they were very, very uncool. And I was in programming and they had music coming through and I had to jump through hoops to try and get their music on the radio.
Oh, no.
I'm just wondering, in 2022, when you say some of your favourite groups are ABBA and the Bee Gees, what do your friends say?
Ooh, you know, I don't think I've ever really mentioned to my mates that I like the Bee Gees and ABBA. It's not really out of embarrassment or anything like that, but I remember I was driving just around one day and I thought to myself, what are like my top 5 favourite bands? Because, you know, people ask all the time, what's your favourite food? What's your favourite song? What's your favourite band? And you have about a gazillion thoughts in your head, like, oh, I can't think of anything. So I thought, these are my top 5 favourite bands, and I decided that's them. There's Bee Gees, ABBA, The Chats, Black Sabbath, and the 5th one has escaped my mind at the moment. But never really talked to them about it, actually. But I'm sure they would agree, because, I mean, they like Mamma Mia. I did a lot of musicals at school, and that's how I made a lot of friends. And if you don't like ABBA, but you love Mamma Mia, then I just like not liking Italian food, but you love spaghetti. It's just...
That's fantastic to hear. But the Bee Gees and ABBA with Black Sabbath, that's incredible. I love it.
That's a great mashup there, eh? Now, because a lot of the music that I like is definitely kind of helping me improve my songwriting, so kind of around the punky, kind of heavy metal kind of stuff. If I could describe my music tastes kind of in general, it would be hard, fast, and heavy. Something that can kind of get me going and can have my foot tap into, and just sounds great. Something I can jam along to.
So when you're writing a song for your band, or you're coming up with some kind of riff or something, who do you think of?
Well,
where do the creative juices come from?
Well, because we're a band, we like to keep everything a very kind of group focused project. You know, we like to make sure everyone's happy. We get everyone in on the writing process just to improve our own musicianship as well as our band's kind of chemistry kind of all together. But personally for me, who do I think of? You know, I also did the same thing with my top 5 favourite bass players of all time, but it seems to just escape my mind, really. I'd say one of them, definitely, Phil Lynott. Phil Lynott is...
Thin Lizzy?
Yes, and he is amazing. I quite like how he keeps it, you know, he keeps the rhythm part just kind of mainly sticking with root notes, but he has like really nice little fills in between, like The Boys Are Back in Town, there's that little bit in there, that's just so cool. Like, it's just like, there'll be a bunch of empty space if it weren't for that fill, but just in there, it's just like, ooh, gets everyone kind of grooving, like, oh, they mean business, these guys, you know, The Boys Are Back in Town, like, you know, it's just like, he's definitely up there. Geddy Lee as well from Rush, he's a immense bass player. Just what he can do. He sings and he plays these ridiculous bass lines, and then he plays, I think it's the Moog or Morg, like these like feet keys.
The Moog synthesizer,
yes,
that used
Moog.
To be
the kind of proggy rock thing, eh?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's just and he's just like a nice guy, just very humble Canadian bloke who just toured the world with one of the best trios of all time. Rest in peace, Neil Peart, of course. Amazing drummer. But yeah, those two definitely some of my favourite bass players. But there's many more, far too many to choose from. Yeah.
Great to hear. We'll have to continue this conversation with many other aspects of music in the days to come.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.